Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So as Hurricane Dorian approaches, we're reminded of how fast supplies can run out. Food, water, gasoline, sandbags, plywood, and other hurricane supplies to try to safeguard against the coming storm are flying off the shelves throughout Florida. And of course, in many places, these things are now in short supply. The panic ado with this impending disaster always tends to progress in this way, and it will progress in this way until the storm dissipates. You know, you'll see the weathermen who get caught pretending like they're being blown away by the wind and all the other exaggerated media hype. Now, fortunately, the latest reports as of early morning August 31st indicate that the storm possibly may not even make landfall. It may just skirt the Florida coast, but regardless, it provides us with a case study to assess the scarcity of resources and how people are going to react to these events and what the outcomes are going to be. When the panic of impending disaster takes hold, whether that fear is rooted in reality or just media exaggerated hype, the reality definitely sinks in for the masses of how unprepared they are to endure these circumstances. And the people who weren't prepared for this beforehand, it puts them in a very precarious situation because now they have to venture out. And in some cases, if these gas stations run out of gas, people are abandoning their cars at the gas station. So it's kind of a futile pursuit for many. And indeed, the long lineups and having to clamor around the grocery stores for supplies in a mad dash to get what's left carries with it its own set of safety hazards. Now, whether the media hype is real or exaggerated, the mad dash for supplies is certainly a very real thing. And the incapacity of the grid to provide resources in short order is a very real thing. We've structured our society around a just-in-time delivery system. The just-in-time delivery system has been facilitated by digital inventory keeping. The benefits of a system like this are that grocery stores don't have to keep inventory on hand, and they can, of course, pass those savings on to the consumer. So the argument is that this essentially allows for some of the cheapest prices on food, which is shipped in from all over the world. And it also allows for more variety. These stores have a limited amount of space, so if they had to have warehouses on site, it would limit the amount of products that they could carry. Of course, it comes at the cost of making us increasingly vulnerable in times of distress, like they're facing in Florida right now. This just-in-time system requires a delicate balance, and any excessive demand put on the system is going to throw it all out of whack. And the ability to bring that system back to balance is going to require some outside help. And that's a possibility when the disaster is only on a regional scale. If we're talking about a full-blown nationwide disaster scenario, the system is going to be quickly overwhelmed within a span of a few days, if not a few hours. So even if there is fuel to be had, it's in very limited supply, and most of the fuel is going to be allocated to the appropriate emergency services and government agencies when the situation gets really bad. And if we scale this up to a national level, we see that it would only take a few days for all hell to really break loose, and for everything to slow to a grinding halt, amounting to what essentially would be gridlock. Now, there is an ample supply of fuel, relatively speaking I should say, at Port Canaveral. They have 38 million gallons of gasoline. But Florida as a whole uses 30 million gallons per day. So you could see how quickly they could burn through a supply like that. Now, one of the biggest challenges that's going to be faced in getting aid to people is going to be the distribution of resources. Because Port Canaveral has all this fuel, but the trucks, the tankers that take the fuel to the gas stations, they can only fuel up every 17 minutes. So they're all timed to the peacetime distribution. And when everybody makes a mad dash to get fuel at once, the trucks simply can't keep up. So even if there is the resources to provide to everybody, those resources aren't going to be able to be distributed. There's only so many ambulances, there's only so many police, there's only so many hospitals, and of course there's only so many supply trucks. Because to have reserves of all these things costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of tax dollars, and nobody wants to pay for that. The responsibility for managing disaster is going to fall on the taxpayer in some way, shape, or form. People can minimize the pressure put on the system during these times by simply being prepared beforehand, by having an ample water supply, Right now, people are scrambling to get water. Perhaps I'm missing something, but the water is still flowing through the taps. So I hope some people had the good sense to go and get themselves some 55-gallon water barrels and just simply fill those up with their tap water. And you don't even need 55-gallon drums for a short situation like this necessarily. Use your imagination. There's a hell of a lot of things that you can put water in that's going to be much cheaper than going out and buying bottled water at price gouging prices. From what I hear, prices are in some cases being raised 400 to 500%. So you also have the issue of people exploiting the crisis to make a quick buck. So in addition to the scarcity of resources, there is an inability to distribute it quickly enough to get it to people who need it. That's another thing that often gets missed when we're talking about disaster preparedness, is that it may well be that the government has resources, but they just don't have the means to get those resources to people. The logistics of coordinating the distribution of aid in one of these situations, especially after a storm comes through, is going to be wrought with so many challenges, especially the way that the bureaucracy does things nowadays. You know, there's so much red tape, there's so much regulation, there's so many I's and T's that need to be dotted and crossed to get anything done, it seems, that to rely on the government to come to your assistance if you do find yourself in an emergency, if it does get really bad, is a very dangerous gamble to make. Now, in spite of people repeatedly enduring these types of disasters that are characteristic of where they live, be they tornadoes in the Midwest, or tropical storms in the southeastern United States, or earthquakes on the left coast, there is a significant portion of the population, arguably the majority of the population, who is consistently unprepared to handle these events. The reality is, it would not take a serious investment of time and resources to prepare for such an event in advance, so you don't have to venture out and wait in line at supermarkets for hours on end, waking up at 5 in the morning to buy generators, only to find out that there's only a certain amount of generators available that day. That's a reality for people on the ground in Florida right now. So as much as I'm concerned about the safety and the quality of life for Floridians who are going to be affected by this storm afterwards, the one positive thing that always comes out of these scenarios is that more preppers are made, because people realize how vulnerable they are, and that the adaptive capacity of the grid to mitigate these crisis scenarios is very limited. And because of that just-in-time delivery system, we're only set up to just provide what's needed when times are good. When times get bad and there's a mad rush on the store, it's very similar to a bank run. The system can't keep up with that. There's going to be backlogs. The trucks simply can't fill their fuel fast enough to keep up with the demand. And as such, there's going to be a lot of people who go without the bare essentials in Florida, unfortunately. That said, the good thing about regional disasters like this is people come together to help each other. And I would encourage anybody who's in a regional predicament, don't just wall yourself in and isolate yourself. If there's people in need, help those people in need, because eventually the smoke's going to clear, the cavalry's going to come, things are going to get resolved, and this is not an apocalyptic scenario where it's going to be every man for himself and dog eat dog. This is an opportunity for a lot of Floridian preppers to shine. It's not a time to bunker in and give everybody the stink eye who needs your help. But I'm not here to tell you what to do. I just know what I would do in the case of a regional disaster scenario. So long as your family is taken care of, most preppers are more than capable of helping a few other people in need, especially if it's a life or death scenario. Please help other people who are in need during this crisis scenario. So this storm is expected to make landfall on Monday or Tuesday, I believe, and somewhere they're predicting between Florida Keys and Georgia. It's going to be a Category 4 storm or more when it lands, and of course it's going to quickly dissipate, hopefully, to a Category 3, then 2, then 1, as it loses its energy moving over the Florida peninsula. So all I can say to all my Florida viewers, I wish you the best of luck, and I understand why some people want to ride this out and they don't want to evacuate. If I lived in a house for 30 years and everything I knew was in that place, it would be hard to want to leave that. Now, especially when there's uncertainty as how severe this storm was going to be. It might be different if they were predicting a catastrophic Category 5 landfall. You know, this is something which a lot of people think they can ride out, and I'm pretty sure if you are a person who is prepared, then you have a good chance of doing so. But I'm not an authority on that issue. All I can do is wish you the best of luck in whatever choices you make. So take care out there, stay safe, and good luck weathering the storm. The best way to support this YouTube channel is to support yourself by gearing up through CanadianPreparedness.com or BugoutRoll.ca. Premium quality gear at the best possible price using the incredibly secure and easy to use Shopify platform. We offer free shipping to the United States for orders over $200 USD and free shipping to Canada over $75. So support the channel by supporting yourself.